Good morning, and welcome back to Drive-In Movies, the podcast where I talk about movies and television shows on my drive to work. Today, I'm going to be talking about Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, the third entry in the Terminator franchise, which at the point of its making is now almost 20 years old. Terminator comes out in 1984. They then wait quite a long time, an impressively long time actually, to make Terminator 2. Comes out in 1991, and I've done reviews for both of those movies. And Terminator 3 comes out in 2003. 12 years after the second one. That is the longest time I can think of between a second and third installment. That is a very, very long time. A few things get shaken up in this movie. James Cameron is no longer directing. A guy named Jonathan Mostow is directing. And you can tell that while the film does stay quite true to the Terminator franchise, there are some sort of aspects of it that are a little bit different, but it does stay quite true to the Terminator film franchise. We do get some characters returning. Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator is back because he's the series headliner. You can't not have him. The character of John Connor has returned. He is now in his 20s, and his mother's not around. Sarah Connor is not a character in this story. Well, I mean, it's not like she doesn't exist, but we don't see her. And our third sort of major character is Kate Brewster, who is a friend of John's from school. So we get into this. It's 2003. You get a lot, by the way, of now that we're into the 2000s, you really get a sense of the visual effects. They're very polished. I know I'm sure I'll talk about this at some point. A lot of people complain about modern special effects and how they look really cheesy, and I don't know, I'm not a very visual person, so it's not something I always notice, and when I do notice it, it doesn't necessarily bother me all that much, but anyway, I enjoy the visual effects. You get to see some more, a little bit more of this sort of futuristic kind of thing that goes on through the use of flash forwards, but you also get a lot of it's mostly set in the present day anyway. You got John Connor. He's living off the grid. No credit cards, no cell phone, no job. I'm not sure how he eats, but that's one thing, by the way, that I can really that can sometimes bother me. It doesn't bother me too much in a movie, but if I don't know how the characters make their money, like I don't know how they eat and pay rent and put gas in their car, if that's the thing they have, it can sometimes confuse me. Not a whole lot, but anyway. So John Connor's off the grid. He runs into his friend Kate, who immediately gets caught up in the inevitable Terminator being sent back from the future to kill him. I think you all know the plot by this point. And of course, the rebels, well, I guess John Connor from the future has sent back yet another protector from the future to protect past John Connor. So lots of good stuff comes out of that. Right off the bat, by the way, it is demonstrated that what the machines have sent back, the Terminator the machines have sent back, is much more capable than John Connor's protector. They really, really show that. Which I find to be, it's a good establishing thing where you see, our protagonist immediately get the snot beat out of them by the antagonist, and they manage to escape. And there's some really good sequences of the Terminator that the machines send back. Really, just like, again, even though we're changing directors, the relentlessness of the Terminator is shown very, very well. It's one of the things the franchise is very good at. It drives the action, it drives the character. It's a huge aspect, and I think it's done very, very well. One of the reasons I like the franchise, actually, and one of the reasons why I decided to review them, also because I saw them recently, and I'm just starting this podcast, so I don't know if I'm gonna, whenever I find a way to post these, which I have not yet, because I only just started, it may not be in the order I recorded them in. It may, I don't know. This could be the third one you're listening to, and I could be just completely off my rocker. But just so you know. All right, so we've got our characters. The story that they are put through, it's not quite as tight as Terminator 2, but that's an awfully high bar. Terminator 2 is a very, very good story. And this is merely a good story. There's a couple things where this Terminator from the future has some sort of control over machines, and there's something towards the end of the movie that they use with that just kind of gets discarded really fast. So it doesn't quite have the time to breathe. It's a shorter movie than the others. I will say, I was waiting, that iconic shot of Arnold Schwarzenegger with, half his face metallic. I was waiting for that shot, and it finally comes in Terminator 3, with the one red eye. Everyone knows the shot. I'm very pleased I got to see it in this movie, and they do a good job of, making him nice and grizzled, and, a lot of action. I really like it. And again, once again, as in Terminator 2, his presence here is explained. It's not like they're just, they are using him as the series headliner, but they spend time trying to make sure it works in universe. So the story, by the way, it is good. It's got some interesting side characters. I find Kate's father in particular. I can't remember the character's name or the actor's name, but I thought he was given a kind of an interesting arc, made for some really, really good stuff. And you can sort of see these decisions that are being made. There's sort of the classic military command structure stuff that goes on. There's some really, really interesting stuff that goes on there. One of the strong parts of the movie, by the way. All right, let's talk acting for a bit here. By the way, on my drive to work, I come to a roundabout, and it always seems that I'm talking about acting right when I get to this roundabout, because I'm going around it right now, which I find kind of unique, but that means I'm just sticking to the formula, I guess. So, acting. Arnold Schwarzenegger, once again, doing a good job as the Terminator. He plays fairly well off, I spent such a long time trying to remember the actor's name who played John Connor for this ride up. I know it was Edward Furlong in Terminator 2, but that was the kid. Such a long time. Danny something? No. My apologies. Anyway, the actor who plays John Connor, does a mediocre job. I just find, he's twitchy, and he's, in the same vein as the kid from Terminator 2. He's just not, he doesn't sell it as much for me. He's supposed to be this great military leader in the future, and I get that this is not at the point where he is that leader yet, but, he still seems too unsure of himself at this point. Anyway, and then our third major character, Kate Brewster, who is played by Claire Danes, actually. Claire Danes has come into some fame quite recently, as opposed to Arnold Schwarzenegger, who no one has ever heard of before. But I'd never seen Claire Danes. I hadn't seen her act, and I gotta say, she did a pretty good job. I was generally impressed by how she carried herself. Reminiscent, but in some ways actually better than Linda Hamilton in the first two movies. She's got a different role, I understand that, but there's some reminiscence there. And she's not constantly the damsel in distress. She does have a brain and she does do things for herself, which I like. And then our other character, sent back from the future, Christiana Loken. I really hope I'm pronouncing that right, but I probably am not. Ho-hum. I get that she's trying to play like this sort of character that's in an unfamiliar environment, but I don't know, maybe it's just because they try too hard to give her some appeal. I don't know, she doesn't sell it all that much for me, so a little bit of a mixed bag on the acting. You got on one side you got Schwarzenegger and Danes, and on the other side you got Loken and a guy whose name I can't remember. It's okay. But the film in and of itself, even though you don't have that James Cameron touch that gives it class, still has all the action you like, still has some interesting characters, some cool plot stuff, and the ending, I will say, is unique. I do enjoy it, and it's a nice setup. So anyway, I would give the Terminator 4 out of 5 stars, or the Terminator 3, sorry, 4 out of 5 stars. It's still an excellent movie, and definitely worth watching if you have. Obviously, I'll watch the first two. So anyway, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you guys next time.